It speaks of pyramids, pharaohs, and gold. The sands of Egypt, it seems, still hold many secrets. One of the most persistent mysteries surrounds the very first pharaohs. We look at the early mastaba tombs and the later, grander pyramids. The pyramids were built before the pharaohs started their reigns. We see a clear progression. Some theories propose that the earliest rulers possessed a level of knowledge that was subsequently lost. Consider the strange case of the Abydos boat graves. These are full-size, real boats buried near the tomb of a first dynasty pharaoh. The official explanation is that they were for the king's journey in the afterlife. But their sophisticated construction hints at a naval technology far more advanced than what was thought to exist at that time. This leads to a fascinating conspiracy theory. It suggests that the earliest dynasties were the inheritors of a much older, more advanced tradition. This tradition was perhaps not fully understood even by them. The theory posits that the first pharaohs were not innovators. They were custodians of a legacy. They were trying to replicate rituals and technologies from a forgotten golden age. The elaborate burial customs with their precise alignments and complex symbolism might not have been new inventions. Instead, they could have been faint echoes of a powerful, lost knowledge system that predated the pharaohs themselves. This idea gains some traction when we examine the physical evidence. The stonework at sites like the Valley Temple of Khafre at Giza is astonishing. It features massive granite blocks fitted together with a precision that modern builders would find difficult to achieve. How did a civilization in its infancy manage such feats? The conspiracy theory offers an answer. It suggests they didn't learn it, they inherited it. This challenges our entire timeline of Egyptian development. It forces us to ask whether the story of Egypt begins not with a slow crawl out of prehistory, but with a sudden, brilliant, and perhaps mysterious inheritance of profound knowledge. As Egypt reached its zenith during the New Kingdom, its power was immense. Pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramesses II commanded vast armies and built magnificent temples. Thebes became the capital of a sprawling empire. Yet, alongside this public display of power, theories persist about a more secretive force at work. This was not the power of the pharaoh or the high priests of Amun-Ra alone. It was the influence of a hidden elite, a secret society dedicated to preserving knowledge that was considered too powerful for the masses. This group, sometimes speculatively called the Brotherhood of the Ankh, would have operated in the shadows of the temples and palaces. The core of this theory is that the most profound Egyptian wisdom was never carved on temple walls. This knowledge pertained to the true nature of the cosmos, the secrets of life and death, and perhaps even advanced forms of science. The public religion, with its pantheon of gods and elaborate rituals, was a simplified version. It was a story designed to maintain social order and the pharaoh's divine authority. The real truths, however, were reserved for a select few. These initiates would have been chosen from the highest ranks of the priesthood, the scribal schools, and even the royal family itself. Their duty was to protect this ancestral wisdom from being misused or misunderstood. Evidence for such a group is, by its very nature, elusive. Secrets, after all, are meant to be kept. However, proponents point to certain texts and symbols that seem to have a dual meaning. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, for example, can be read as a simple guide to the afterlife, but it can also be interpreted as an allegorical map of human consciousness and spiritual transformation. The intricate symbolism found in certain royal tombs, like that of Seti I, goes far beyond simple religious iconography. It suggests a deep, complex philosophical and astronomical system that was not part of the standard curriculum for the average Egyptian priest. This secret society would have been the true engine of Egyptian culture. It would have guided the hands of the architects who aligned the pyramids with the stars. It would have informed the physicians who practiced surprisingly complex medicine, and it would have advised the pharaohs on matters of statecraft, using its deep understanding of history and human nature. The stability of Egyptian civilization over 3,000 years is remarkable. Perhaps this stability was not just due to strong rulers and a powerful army. It may have been underpinned by a hidden brotherhood, silently guarding the sacred knowledge that was the true source of Egypt's enduring strength. No period in Egyptian history is more strange than the reign of Akhenaten. In the 14th century BC, this pharaoh turned his back on millennia of tradition. He abandoned the worship of Amun-Ra and the entire Egyptian pantheon. He established a new capital city, Akhetaten, in the desert, and he promoted a new religion focused on a single deity, the Aten, represented as the physical disk of the sun. The official explanation is that this was a religious revolution, a move towards monotheism. But a more intriguing and controversial theory suggests an external influence. It whispers of contact with non-human intelligence, or star people. This theory gains its fuel from the unique Amarna art style that emerged under Akhenaten. The pharaoh and his family are depicted in a bizarre, almost alien way. They have elongated skulls, slender limbs, swollen bellies, and feminine hips. This is a radical departure from the idealized, heroic forms of traditional Egyptian art. Skeptics argue this was simply a new artistic convention, but others ask if the art was not a convention, but an attempt at realism. Was Akhenaten and his family physically different? Did they suffer from a genetic condition, or were they, as the theory suggests, not entirely of this world? The religion of the Aten itself is also seen as evidence. It was not just monotheistic, it was abstract and universal. The Aten was a cosmic force, the creator of all life, not just in Egypt but across the entire world. This was a radical departure from the local, nationalistic gods of the past. Where did such a sophisticated and universal concept come from so suddenly? The theory posits that this knowledge was given to Akhenaten. It was a new theology delivered by messengers from beyond our world, who perhaps saw the Aten as a more accurate representation of the universal life-giving force of a central star. After Akhenaten's death, his revolution was brutally erased. His city was abandoned, his monuments were torn down, and his name was struck from the king lists. He became the criminal of Akhetaten. Why such a violent reaction? Perhaps it was more than just a return to traditional religion. If Akhenaten's rule was influenced by an outside force, the Egyptian establishment may have seen it as a fundamental threat. The erasure of his reign was not just about restoring Amun-Ra, it was about expunging a cosmic heresy and burying a secret that was too dangerous to be remembered. The time when Egypt looked beyond its borders, and perhaps beyond its own planet. The final centuries of an independent Egypt are often portrayed as a slow, inevitable decline. A succession of weaker pharaohs, internal strife, and the rising power of foreign empires like Assyria, Persia, and finally Rome sealed its fate. The story is one of a great civilization simply running out of steam. However, a compelling conspiracy theory offers a different perspective. It suggests that Egypt did not just fall, it was pushed. This theory argues that Egypt's decline was accelerated by a deliberate covert campaign of cultural and economic sabotage, orchestrated by its rivals who coveted its wealth and ancient knowledge. This was not a war fought with armies alone, but a war of infiltration and influence. The theory proposes that foreign agents disguised as merchants, diplomats, and even priests slowly integrated themselves into the Egyptian power structure. Their goal was to sow discord and weaken the state from within. They may have manipulated rivalries between different temple factions, encouraging them to fight over resources and influence rather than uniting against external threats. They could have also introduced economic policies that destabilized the grain supply, the backbone of the Egyptian economy, leading to unrest among the population. One key piece of evidence cited is the systematic looting and destruction of Egyptian knowledge. When the Library of Alexandria burned, it was not just an accident of war. Proponents of this theory see it as the culmination of a long process. The goal was to erase Egypt's intellectual heritage and appropriate its secrets. Foreign powers were not just interested in Egypt's gold. They wanted its knowledge of medicine, astronomy, and engineering. By destroying the original sources and taking copies for themselves, they could claim this wisdom as their own while ensuring Egypt could never rise again to challenge them. This theory recasts the end of ancient Egypt. It was not a gentle fading into the night. It was a targeted takedown of a global superpower. The final pharaoh, Cleopatra, was not just a romantic figure caught between warring Roman generals. She was the last leader of a nation that had been systematically undermined for generations. The Roman conquest was merely the final act in a long-running conspiracy to dismantle the world's oldest and greatest civilization. This perspective reminds us that history is often shaped by hidden currents, and the fall of an empire can be as much about covert action as it is about open warfare.